Our family name is Desmond. We are Irish immigrants living in New York. Irish immigrants came to America because of the world-known potato famine. The famine started off as an airborne fungus traveled from the ships because of all the urine and feces. The fungus then traveled with the wind, landing on potato leaves, making the leaves turn black and rotting them. The potato was then dug up to be eaten, looking normal, but it was infected. Soon after being dug up, it would become rotten. Peasants would dig them up and eat them immediately, and would not know that the potato was infected, due to it looking normal. Soon after eating the potatoes, they would become sick and die.
In 1861, Abraham Lincoln was elected president, causing the South to secede. South Carolina was the first state to secede, sending the government a letter which read, "The one great evil from which all other evils have flowed is the overthrow of the Constitution of the United States. The government of the United States is no longer the government of a confederate republic, but a consolidated democracy. It is such a government as Great Britain attempted to set over our fathers and which was resisted and defeated by a 7-year struggle for independence." South Carolina secession letter. There was no modern way of communication. Therefore, they had to use the newspaper for mass communication. People thought it was going to be a short war, so people flocked to support their side. People found out that battle was not as awesome as it sounded, but that people died by the hundreds in the Battle of Bull Run.
87 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who have gave their lives that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men living and dead who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world with little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here for the unfinished work which they fought here have us thus far nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task of remaining before us, that from these honored dead take the increased devotion that caused for the great that they gave for the last measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. The draft rights were a terrible time for the 5 Points, because all of the Irish living there that could not pay the exemption fee rioted because it was called the rich man's war, poor man's fight. That's like totally cheating. You just paid your way out of debt. People did not know what they were getting themselves into. They knew it was a war, but they didn't know what war was. Nobody came back the same. Many riots broke out because they could not afford the fee. The rioters wanted to set fire to the New York Times building, but the people protecting the building melted lead and poured it out the windows, aiming at the rioters.
The Anaconda Plan was originally written in 1861 but implemented in 1864. The plan was broken into 4 different parts. Part 1, block off the coast so no crop exchanges could occur. Part 2, divide the South from the Mississippi, cutting off western contact. Part 3, divide the South by taking over the Tennessee River Valley and marching through Georgia to the coast. Part 4, capture Richmond, Virginia, capital of the Confederacy. This would force the South to surrender, and if they did not, Sherman would march through and set ablaze everything in his path. When the Confederacy did not surrender, Sherman marched to Atlanta, Georgia, setting everything in his path on fire.
Andersonville was a prisoner of war camp. It only lasted for 14 months, but it was a horrid 14 months for all that occupied it. The camp smelled horribly and people could not get the food they needed to survive. The Confederacy did not have money. They could barely feed their troops. They did not have rations for the prisoners in the camp, and they starved because of it. The Union soldiers in the camp did not get proper medical attention because the Andersonville hospital was backed up because of the amount of disease spreading around the camp.